So when you think about the giants shaping the future of American retirement, a massive, multi-billion-dollar industry, your mind probably goes to Wall Street firms, right? Or maybe some Silicon Valley tech disruptor. But what if I told you the undisputed leader, the company that is absolutely setting the gold standard, is headquartered in Des Moines, Iowa? Yeah. Let's dive into the incredible 50-year saga of how a construction offshoot from Des Moines came to completely dominate American retirement.
Look, every year J.D. Power puts out its rankings for senior living satisfaction. It's basically the ultimate report card on who is making America's seniors happy. And the results, they're just staggering. For 7 straight years, one company, LCS, hasn't just won, it has completely dominated. They're scoring an 831 out of 1,000, leaving the industry average of 753 way back in the dust. So you gotta ask the question, right? How on earth did this happen? How did a company that literally started as an offshoot of a construction business founded way back in 1855 become the most powerful and respected player in senior living? Well, the answer is this amazing 50-year story of brilliant strategy, some really radical pivots, and an absolute obsession with getting it right.
Okay, so to really get LCS, you have to go back to its DNA. See, it wasn't founded by healthcare experts or hospitality gurus. Nope. It was born from the world of bricks and mortar, of project management and capital planning. And trust me, that changes everything.
The story really kicks off with the Weitz Company, a construction firm that got its start in 1855. Now, fast forward to the 1960s. They're building this radical new type of project called continuum of care communities, places where seniors could live on one campus as their needs changed. But as they built more and more of these, their leader, Fred Weitz, spotted a huge problem. The folks running these communities just didn't have the business know-how to make them succeed long-term. And that single realization directly led to the founding of a new management company in 1971.
So this is the light bulb moment. Fred Weitz realized that just putting up the buildings wasn't nearly enough. You see, the nonprofit boards and the religious groups sponsoring these places were great at their mission, but they didn't know the first thing about running a super complex business with healthcare rules and hospitality services. There was this massive operational void, and Weitz decided his company was going to be the one to fill it.
Initially, they called the company Christian Home Services because, well, its first clients were religious nonprofits. But Fred Weitz had a much bigger vision. He bought out his partner and rebranded. Life Care Services, or LCS, wasn't just some name change. It was a strategic declaration. It meant they were moving beyond a niche market to become an industry-wide player, focused on the life care model itself. You know, the model where residents pay a big upfront fee for a promise of guaranteed housing and care for life.
So for decades, LCS was doing great as a part of the bigger construction company, but to truly become a giant, it had to break free. This next chapter is all about a revolution in ownership that would completely change its culture and really its entire future. This journey to independence really happened in 3 critical stages. First, you've got LCS as just a division of Weitz. Then, and this is a huge moment, in 1995, the employees themselves bought the company, creating what's called an ESOP, or an employee stock ownership plan. That structure defined them for years, until another massive shift in 2010, when they brought in private equity to fuel their next big growth spurt.
Now, here's why that ESOP model was such a perfect fit. Senior living is not a get-rich-quick business. I mean, resident contracts can last for 20 years or more. So having the employees as owners created this long-term focus that perfectly mirrored their customers' timelines. It also created what you might call golden handcuffs, giving the best talent a really powerful reason to stick around and build value for decades.
Then, 2010 hits. After the financial crisis, the whole game changed. To really grow, LCS couldn't just be a manager for hire anymore. Lenders wanted them to have skin in the game. So they made a really bold move and brought in $50 million from McCarthy Capital. Now, this wasn't about selling out. It was all about getting the cash they needed to become an owner and a real estate investor themselves.
And with that new capital, LCS went from being a single-service company into a fully integrated powerhouse. They weren't just managing communities anymore. They started building a complete ecosystem to control every single part of the value chain. And this chart shows you exactly how they built it. You've got the core operations arm, Life Care Services. Then there's LCS Development, carrying on that construction legacy. You have LCS Real Estate, which is the investment engine. And then you have their secret weapon, CPS, the Group Purchasing Division. All together, they became the ultimate one-stop shop for anyone in the senior living business.
So let's quickly talk about what a GPO is, because this is the key to their dominance. Imagine you're trying to get a good price on food for just one community. Now, imagine you're negotiating for nearly 2,000 communities all at once. That's CPS. It uses the massive scale of the entire LCS network to drive down costs for everybody, creating huge value and a crazy powerful competitive advantage.
All right, so LCS had the structure, they had the capital, they had the strategy, but did it actually work? Well, this next phase of their story is defined by a relentless, almost obsessive focus on quality, and the creation of a track record that is just untouchable.
Just let this number sink in for a second. 7. 7 consecutive years as number one. In pretty much any industry, that kind of sustained dominance is almost unheard of. It's really a testament to an organization that is firing on all cylinders, from the very top all the way down to the frontline staff in every single community.
And it gets even more impressive when you start to break it down. See, they didn't just win the top spot, they swept every single category measured. Dining, staff, activities, the buildings, even what people felt about the price they paid. This wasn't a narrow victory, it was a total knockout. It proves that their excellence isn't just in one area, it's across the entire resident experience. Now, to keep all this going, LCS made another genius capital move in 2022. They partnered up with a firm called Redwood Capital that provides something called evergreen capital. This is so important. Your typical private equity fund has to sell its investments in like 5 to 7 years, which is a terrible fit for a business with 20-year contracts. But evergreen capital, it has no expiration date. It perfectly aligns the investor's timeline with the company's long-term reality. It's brilliant.
So all of these moves we've talked about really set the stage for the current era, where LCS is making these massive, industry-shaking deals and cementing its position as the undisputed king of the hill.
First up, they simplified their message. For years, they had all these different names for their different companies. LCS, CPS, LCS Development. Well, in mid-2025, they brought it all together under one single banner, One LCS. It's such a smart move to present a single, powerful, unified face to the market, especially when you can leverage all that brand equity from those JD Power wins across the whole enterprise.
And just when you thought they couldn't possibly get any bigger, they dropped a bombshell. Now, to understand just how big this is, you have to know about a company called V. Spun out of the Hyatt Hotel Company, V is basically the Rolls-Royce of senior living. It is the absolute crown jewel of the luxury market.
In late 2025, LCS announced it was merging with Vi. This is a total game changer. It instantly makes LCS the dominant force in the high-end luxury sector. It lets them apply their incredible purchasing power through CPS to Vi's operations, and it merges two of the most elite, quality-obsessed cultures in the entire industry.
And all of this is happening under a new generation of leadership. As of January 2025, Chris Bird is taking over as CEO. His promotion sends a pretty clear signal that the company has absolutely no plans of slowing down. In fact, it's likely going to continue its aggressive and strategic growth.
So why does all of this matter so much right now? Because we are in the middle of what everyone calls the silver tsunami. The baby boomers are entering the senior housing market in massive, massive numbers. And after 50 years of these strategic moves, LCS now controls all the critical levers of the industry: the capital to build, the purchasing power to operate efficiently, and the management expertise to deliver the kind of experience that this very demanding generation expects. Which leaves us with one last really fascinating question. The future of how Americans will live out their later years, that's one of the biggest social and economic stories of our time. And when you look at the scale, the strategy, and the sheer dominance of this one company, you really have to ask yourself, is that future being quietly designed, built, and managed from an office in Des Moines, Iowa?